Let's hear it. Woo! I'm Adam Eisen. I'm the membership director here at the One Club for Creativity and your host for today. Morning Buzz is our semi-regular program that features our incredible membership community here at the One Club. We have insightful talks and panels from our engaged corporate members and interviews with ad creatives, designers, illustrators, photographers, and so much more. We've got it all right here. This week, we have a super special lineup as today kicks off the first day of 2024's Creative Week. Let's hear it for Creative Week. All week, we're coming at you live from the Wix Playground, which has kindly provided their space and is feeding us in our audience breakfast. So thank you to the Wix team. Let's hear it. But audience at home, just because you aren't here in this space doesn't mean you're not here in our hearts. So please use the chat to say hi, let us know where you're from, drop questions in the chat. We want you to join in on all of this fun too. Later on, we'll be celebrating all of our incredible student talent at the Young Ones Awards, and we can't wait to party with them later. But first, let's get on with today's show. I'm so ready to introduce our first guest, co-founder and chief creative officer of Platinum Corporate member, Madwell, here to share about embracing neurodiversity in the creative process. Please help me welcome Chris Sojka.
Molly calls me Clawboy Trash Hands. Hi.
Thanks, Chris.
Hello. Is this my deck over here? Like, I'm good? I just hit advance. All right, great. So, hi. How's everyone doing? Good. Awesome. So the name of our agency is Madwell, and the title of this presentation is "We're All Mad in Here," which is a quote from obviously Alice in Wonderland, said by the cat that is either real or not real. I prefer to believe he's both simultaneously. But the important thing actually is that it's the well part of our name. That's another quote from Alice in Wonderland. And that quote's by the Mad Hatter. I tend to wear fedoras a lot, but I didn't want to wear one today because forever I'll be broadcast looking like an ass. So you need context to wear a fedora, otherwise people just hate you. And so the Mad Hatter says, if you knew time as well as I do, you wouldn't talk about wasting it. It's him. Of course, the Mad Hatter is claiming he's friends with time, and I've spent most of my life believing that time and I were arch nemesis. Nemesis? And so the name Madwell is, obviously a simple function of chaos creates, great output in our industry. But it's also kind of an act of self-acceptance. And it took me exactly 14 years after we started the company to admit that the name had anything to do with Alice in Wonderland. So slow-moving self-acceptance, let me tell you. So I'm going to start by just giving you guys a sizzle video, not to sell you us, but so that I can explain the rest of everything else.
thoughts, I've come back to the land I was. The arms are down, I'm welcome back to town. Sometimes I feel like they don't understand me. I hear their mouths making foreign sounds. Sometimes I think they're all just speaking tongues. They're all just speaking tongues. They're all just speaking tongues. They're all just speaking tongues.
Okay. And that's the end. Please give us business as you enter the workforce. Backwards dynamic. So this is in the Library of Congress. It's a drawing from the Disney archives, and it says "Plane Crazy," and in it, Mickey grabs a book. It says "How to Fly," very unsuccessfully builds a plane, and crashes. And it's one of the things that bothered me for a lot of my life until very recently was being called interchangeably crazy, selfish for being late, occasionally genius, but as an insult, which is a funny one, and my least favorite, which is some variation of a unicorn, which is a way of saying, you could do that, I couldn't, so I've just disavowed my responsibility in the participation of the team, because you something other, I not responsible for same. Which is a crazy idea. I became obsessed with unicorns because, firstly, how could a unicorn be homogeneously white and rainbow? Secondly, doesn't make any sense, right? Like, secondly, if I announced to a room full of people, hey, we're all unicorns, you can see the people who are kind of like, fuck this guy. And they're like, I'm like, so you're a horse? We're all humans. This is just a made-up metaphor. Why not be the imaginary version that has limitless opportunity instead of the horse? I don't get it. But it's strange how something like that can be isolating. And so I want to just be really clear. When I was young, I got diagnosed with ODD, the world's funniest acronym for a very serious implication on your educational journey, oppositional defiance disorder. My mom fought like hell to be like, it's not ODD, it's ADHD. I was like 5, so, this is just recounting. ADHD, what does that mean? Somebody raise your hand. Tell me, what does it mean? And go on in terms of how you imagine that manifests, We use it a lot in society, ADD, ADHD. No wrong answer, like I just... I called on the right person. It is, in fact, a form of what we call neurodivergence, where you have a dopamine deficiency. And what's funny about it is people confuse it with all sorts of other shorthand diagnoses we create. The human brain is up to roughly 100 quadrillion synaptic connections. So it's funny how you go see a psychiatrist, psychologist, and they're like, hey, I heard you. Yeah, so I'm going to give you medicine, but you want to go to anything else? And, pardon? It's disrupting together. And I get that because it's not fair if I can't control my outbursts and blurt things out in an environment. But it took me a long time to say this, actually to even accept this as an adult. It's like there's a lapse between the diagnosis, it goes out of my thinking, and then I sort of re-engage with it by accepting it, regardless of what any doctor says, as a way of understanding myself and how my brain works and what is a flaw or what needs to change and what maybe just is and I could utilize if I wasn't ashamed of it. And so people often think of me as like, I'm distracted. I'm doing too many things. I can't possibly follow through. And master of none, jack of all trades, master of none. Is that the phrase? But it's the opposite, of course. It's hyper focus. And the problem is something akin to if any one of these cameras was trying to focus on 10 of me at the same time, all of the time, that's a sort of form of suffering. And then eventually it will focus on one of me and then not stop until something triggers a refocus on something else. It allows you to have a very odd relationship with time. There's more deck, I swear. So, first thing I want to say is that neurodiversity gets thrown around, but it's an immutable fact like biodiversity. If our brains are the most complicated things we can conceive of and know of, then simply it's a statement. This is a neurodiverse room because there's a bunch of humans in here. The end. All of your brains are infinitely unique, beyond our present comprehension, even at a quantum computing level. So too are your fingerprints and irises. But you can't be a neurodiverse person. There's debate about the semantics of this, but nuts and bolts, that's how I feel. Neurodivergence is not, yes, it's a classification or diagnosis. You can classify yourself as that. It's not too cool if you classify somebody else as that. A doctor can classify you as that. It's a helpful way of understanding maybe why you function differently in normal societal settings. It comes with a strange kind of like shit. Oh, you're neurodivergent. Okay. Like, all right. Like, what do you need? And it's like, firstly, to be somebody who announces that, to answer the question, what's your name? Yeah. Brittany. To answer the question what Brittany just did is rare, like technically correct and just straight on. I mean, to be somebody who thinks of themselves as neurodivergent is itself difficult to do. To go into a workplace and announce that's who you are is automatic othering of yourself to everybody else. And it accepts the presumption that there is a neurotypicism. The only way I look at neurotypicism as beneficial is the comfort that it brings various families with children on the spectrum and helps them understand. It helps alleviate a certain amount of pain by creating a relativity. But the truth is there's no neurotypicism unless our brains have a typical format. And other than being a brain, they don't. I don't want to talk today necessarily about neurodivergence. I want to talk about the fact that neurodiversity is if it's all of us, then why do workplaces try so very hard to get us to do a repetitive task? Every one of you is more powerful than the most powerful supercomputer that we have built yet in your brain, making leaps of logic that defy understanding how from here to here can occur at a quantum computing level could take months, but it happens instantaneously in the human brain, and yet we have people at the TSA who are forced to stand there as a job and say, excuse me, do you have any liquids in that bag? As if that is what the human brain is for. It's a bummer. So I want to talk about how difficult but important it is to build a workplace that accepts neurodiversity as fact and then means everybody's making space for everybody. That doesn't mean without consequence. I have a very simple philosophy on the matter. Place has to be good for your brain has to be good for the place. No ethicality other than that. No, it's not a moral judgment. You're not smart, dumb, better, worse. It just has to create harmony. And so we are, of course, called Madwell because, well, starting out 15 years ago, coming from an SEO paid search analytics agency in the Empire State Building, the founder was from Russia and felt that would legitimize us. It did not do that. It did the opposite. It was very hard to explain why we're in the Empire State Building. And at like 23, starting an agency and saying, hey, yeah, we're full service. It's 2-3 of us. You know, LOL in this industry 15 years ago. But it's totally different now. Everybody talks about full service and means it, and it's totally believed that you could be good at an ecosystemic approach, not one, just kidding. Every single time, what are you good at best? I've just shown you an entire presentation saying, I work on ecosystemic thinking. And you're like, but no, really, what are you guys best at? I'm like, ecosystemic thinking. They're like, no, seriously, like websites? Billboards? Like, what is it? And I'm like, okay, I'm not engaging in this question anymore. So I invented an imaginary company called MadCorp. Internal tagline, you have to believe it to see it. You all work here, but it doesn't exist. Not as a corporation, because I think it's funny when companies get very corporate. But it does have a tagline. The world is bound in secret knots. This is a phrase that's given me comfort because I saw it in a funny little ironic museum in LA called the Museum of Jurassic Technology. But it's a real quote by a guy named Athanasius Kircher, a contemporary Galileo, just with a lot more Jesuit philosophy, and he was right about a lot of stuff and wrong about things like dragons and his very detailed description of them, because they're actually not real. But he was right about a lot of things intuitively about the way that the world works. And this idea that things are interwoven, not because of a higher or lower power, just because mathematically it's likely that they are, that has given me comfort. So I made this deck for my company. This is the terms of service. Readers shall have the sole and exclusive right throughout the universe in perpetuity to use and exploit all or any part of the properties and all or any of the material contained therein or prepared therefore, whether or not used therein in any format or version by any means and in any media, whether now known or hereafter developed, as long as it remains inside your imagination. Obviously, that's a little bit of a fuck you to Apple because, you know, they've even got, we're not responsible if this causes a nuclear war in their terms of service. When you download and install the information contained within this document, the information that you collect depends on your brain's operating system and permissions. If you change your settings, certain features may not function properly. Others may not function if you fail to change certain settings and features. Note, please refrain from trying to make sense of perfectly sensible nonsense. Big philosophy of Madwell is chaos and order, and that, well, there's no sense without nonsense. We have to live with paradox as humans. So, after I get everyone to agree to this and read the highly confidential and extremely secret, unless known part of this, I go to this. This is a constellation called Monoceros. It wasn't me who added a dog on the back of the unicorn constellation. That is ancient people. I'll go fast. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to speed through some corporate values. This is a fake quote from that museum about that real philosopher that I read 17 years ago that stuck with me, and I didn't realize till about 6 months ago that Valentine Worth is a made-up person by the museum because it's an ironic commentary. All of nature and its awful vastness and incomprehensible complexity is in the end interrelated. Worlds within worlds, the seen and the unseen, the physical and the immaterial are all connected, each exerting influence on the next, bound, as it were, by chains of analogy, magnetic chains. Every decision, every action, mirrors, ripples, reflects, and echoes throughout the whole of creation. The world is indeed bound with secret knots. Said another way, hey, the way we work together and the way we make space for each of us and how we work together, kind of a yes and, what if versus a no but and I disagree. So basically improv theory, that's what I take away from this. And so when people ask what they're doing at Madwell, I start by saying you're here to create. Our logo is a lightning bulb filament. It's an M, obviously, but it's a nod to, well, this, but also Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb. He made it viable. And he had to collect lots and lots and lots of attempts at things passionately to actually make the one that worked. And what we have to do is take all of that energy, that kinetic energy that's in all of us, not the creative department, which is not a real thing, unless you are, any of you are not creative and don't have ideas. It's not a real thing. And I remind people, this is why you're here. And then they say, you know, what are we doing? What's the purpose of us? Well, I had to tell everybody we were an agency for a long time. Now I say, we're a creative solutions company with an agency because we're growing a tree. We are making not just work for clients and work for ourselves, but we're growing things out of that which we could sell or capitalize. It's a pursuit of autonomy because I don't just want to pitch and get fired and pitch and get fired and live within the strangest economic thing I've ever seen, which is you get a client, you lose a client, you fire a team. How depressing. So I wrote these corporate tenets. Be childlike, not childish, yeah? The stars can be threaded if you simply connect the dots. Chaos is just a failure of the imagination. Disorder is the energy source of inspiration. We are hardwired to make sense of nonsense. This is actually what's happening when children play. A child cannot be childish, for they are a child. This is uniquely the domain of adults. It means grow the fuck up and solve the problems together and stop displacing blame. I'm trying with time. I'm doing it. Back one. Great. Don't be fucking cynical. We make shit up for a living. What a gift. We get paid for it. Use your whole brain. 100% of your brain. I got you. I'm going to go fast, if it lets me. Aim it that way. That solves a lot of the problems. Don't waste time. Seriously, I'm time blind. By life, it is work life. If you get to do what we do. I will not say that's any other industry, but I hate people looking at their job in this business where we make stuff up and saying, got no work-life balance, I got to go home. Okay, My problem these days is people look at this lovely craft we get to have with the idea that it is the wrong thing. Know what you don't know. Very important. Can only know what you know if you try to know what you don't know. So this leads to the whole ADHD brain and the conversations I got to have in pitches until recently. Wow, that looks distracted, right? Or it looks like a fractal and a perfect geometry. Madwell is a place like Disney was once, Light and Magic was once, to bring together people across all different disciplines. It's at the center. Yes, it's an agency. Yes, I love advertising, communication, arts, but the world is changing, and for my whole career, I've heard advertising is broken. And the debate goes on and on. Tell you why it's broken. Holding companies consolidate agencies, depreciate the value of brands, and the brands of the companies they take together, and have difficulty changing because they're monolithic. But change is so constant and rapid that they're stuck on old sources of revenue. I don't want to be. So this is a system meant to work together. It's not even all done. I'm just showing it to you to tell you this. Where we're going has to be the convergence of entertainment, content, engagement. Advertising has to become more utilitarian. And people have a choice. You know, they want to learn about a product, maybe get it, or engage with you as a brand. How could we be an industry that spends $25 billion a year, more than all the content streaming services combined, to make stuff we throw out? We do a campaign and it's over, except for our portfolios. How is that possible? It's nuts. How is it our clients have to deplete their budget or else? And we don't get to make things that stand the test of time. We can do both. That can be an ad and an asset for the client, for us. I pause here and go into questions because of both time and the fact that I have spent my whole career getting to the point where I was comfortable enough to show this. It's the first time I've ever shown it to the outside world. It's a way of saying, look, we're striving to make different divisions, an e-commerce platform, an IP holding company, experiential, production, record label, fine art studio, fabrication, creating new businesses, creating new technologies, especially in visual effects, making small investments in businesses, having a nonprofit, taking equity in kind like I couldn't do when I should have taken equity in kind 15 years ago before it sold for $6 billion 15 years later, but I needed the money because that's how we built the agency without investors and other things. I will pause there and just say, look, I seem a lot like a guy with ADHD who just gave a long presentation about a really ambitious company. And so I'm curious what your questions are.
Chris,
Am I out of time?
we've got a question, too. We've got time for a question or two for Chris. Any questions in our audience?
Don't leave me up here without a question.
Yeah, there we go.
For most of my life, it was artificial crisis. I turned everything into procrastination and fear, and that triggered a focus. Now, it's interest. I accept that if I enjoy something, I have to go with it. And people who love me sort of have to get used to the fact that, like, if I got to follow that interest, that's how I stay happy and engaged. If I fight it, I fall apart, and I end up doing nothing and feeling unable to relax, but also not doing things. So now I focus on that instinct and follow it, and it concludes. And then maybe dinner or hanging out. But that's, giving up on the crisis trigger. What else?
Yeah, got another one? We've got time for one more.
Come on.
Oh, there we go.
Now that you've built your brand and your company, what do you look for in people that you hire? What do you admire? What qualities, characteristics? I know the job can be top, but what do you look for in people?
Curiosity. Approaching everything with curiosity. Humility and empathy for others. And a willingness to accept their imperfection, others' imperfection, and make space for both. And the ability to just have fun and not look at everything as a sacrifice. Because I would have gone into banking and done a decent job at making money from money. It's just, that to me is about as interesting as nothing. So really it's that curiosity, humility, and empathy, and the ability to have fun. I think I'm out of time. Do I have to
I think we're
run
getting
off
there.
the
I was
stage?
going to see if we have one more. We've got like another minute, but I also One more?
I'm answering it like radio lawyer speed.
We started slow and then it got like so fast.
Yeah,
but it
I
was
know,
good.
and it's-
But I do have a question that I think people might be interested in. So you've built a company based off of neurodiversity, working in a way that works for you. Do you have any tips, insights for somebody who's leading a company or a team to make their team or their workplace more neurodivergent friendly?
Yes, begin by accepting neurodiversity. Because corporate scale tells us we have to create boxes, and those boxes define jobs,
Yeah.
and they get smaller and smaller by virtue of their beginning point. The hardest thing in the world is to accept I'm going to scale complexity. That means leaving people with an equation and much more autonomy than a prescriptive description set and a series of tools to follow every step along the way, because everything is solved slightly differently, and that's okay. And accepting that every brain is different and trying to build a process around that seems harder till you don't look at it as chaos, but actually opportunity for exponential potential.
Awesome. Let's hear it for Chris, everybody. Thank you so much. Chris, thank you.
I'm available for very not good raps at like bar mitzvahs, weddings, and all of that, because I can speak really fast. They're very terrible and without any joy, but thank you for listening to me, guys.
Thanks so much, Chris. Next up, we have somewhat of a surprise guest for you that I'm pleased to introduce, just confirmed over the weekend. I'm pleased to introduce Chief Creative Officer of Edelman Canada, Anthony Shelvanathan. Prior to taking on his current position as Chief Creative Officer at Edelman Canada, Anthony began working his way up as Executive Creative Director at Leo Burnett Toronto, which culminated in his appointment to Senior Vice President. Along the way, Anthony has made a name for himself as one of the most prolific creatives in his industry. His work has garnered acclaim at nearly all of the world's top creative shows, including 64 Cannes Lions recognitions. Also, notably, Anthony became the first judge to represent Cannes Lions in Sri Lanka while also representing Canada on numerous occasions, and 500 plus international awards from institutions such as The One Show, D&AD, ADC, Communications Arts, LIA, and the Clios. Throughout his career, Anthony has repeatedly landed at the top of Strategy Magazine's creative talent lists and has been ranked 6th in the world by the Gun Report. When he's not unleashing juggernaut creative ideas onto the world and meticulously crafting his way to the #1 art director spot in the country, Anthony can be found in his kitchen treating his friends to the latest spicy curry recipe. Please help me welcome Anthony Shelvanathan. Let's keep it going. Hey, Anthony, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I mean, it's an honor to be here.
Yes.
I know it was a last-minute call, but came from
made it.
Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the way from Canada. We made it happen.
Yep.
You have a very modest bio.
Oh, man, I need to update that.
No, it's great. We're so honored to have you here. You're now CCO of Edelman Canada, but let's go back a bit. Was advertising always the goal?
Yeah, ever since I was a little kid, I guess I got into it because my dad was drawing, he kept drawing, palm tree, and I kept copying him and drawing, and my teacher, I won an award when I was little.
Oh, cool.
And
For a palm tree?
for drawing palm tree, exactly. That's how I got into this business. And one of my teachers said, go into advertising. I had no clue what it was. Just got involved, and I just love it because you could think of ideas, and that's where my passion is.
Amazing. So if you can draw a palm tree, you too can run a national agency. Edelman is unique in that its focus is on earned media. What is it that attracts you to that, and how does that challenge you creatively?
Yeah, I got into Edelman because of Judy John. You guys might have heard of her.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
Ooh, Judy John!
I mean, we're in a business of people, and we spend more time with people than our own family. So you want to be with somebody that you respect, you can learn, And pretty much Judy's been my mentor my whole entire life. Awesome. And in Edelman, earned is something that I didn't understand it, but that was actually where my love was. When you really think about the best work in the world, it's those work that you're going to share with your friends, your parents, whoever. Yeah. So at Edelman, earned is at the core, and it's the idea that's going to be shared without being paid for it.
Yeah, it occurs that we have a few students in our audience. Is everybody clear on earned media, what that is? Yeah, cool. Okay, great. Perfect. So we've got some work to show an example of this. It's a piece that you launched recently. A few months ago, Salutum, an Edelman family agency, launched a new tech tool for Allegra at South by Southwest. Let's take a look.
The dangerous air quality in the eastern part of the country.
All that smoke is coming from wildfires in Canada.
According to a recent study, allergy season is now 20 days longer than it used to be.
Introducing Allegra Airways, the world's first navigation tool for allergy sufferers. Allegra Airways helps you find real-time walking and cycling routes to your destination with less pollen and less air pollution. Monitoring air quality changes street to street, minute to minute, down to an accuracy of 5 meters. Accessible on any device through a web browser across all 50 states.
Partnering with Allegra, we were able to create our own climate intelligence algorithm that powers Allegra Airways. 7-layer multimodal approach. All these sources come together to give us a combined live air quality and pollen rating for a specific location, tracking 12 types of different pollen and 6 types of air pollutants in real time.
We also integrated into the tool a dynamic coupon mechanism. If you're in an area with high levels of pollen, you get a bigger discount on Allegra. We've encouraged users to highlight where they experience low air quality. This can allow us to share the data with policymakers in order to build better infrastructure.
Allegra Airways was launched in front of influential attendees at Climate Week New York and South by Southwest, with pedicabs that offered attendees rides to their next event on real-time routes with better air quality.
A tool like Allegra Airways really empowers allergy patients, helping them navigate around allergy triggers by simply avoiding them as they go about their everyday lives.
I suffer from pollen a lot, so for me it's a wonderful service tool.
There is a cleaner way to get from point A to point B.
Better options, healthier options, better living.
Allegra Airways.
Let's hear it. Can you give us a peek into the process of how this idea was born?
Yeah, to me, we don't spend too much time on the problem. And problem is where I'm really inspiring people to put more time towards. And one of the things, part of that is, I want the briefs to be very simple. I'm talking about caveman language. I'm an art director. When I started out, I want to be able to think the brief while I'm taking a shower. So I actually asked my strategist to brief me in emojis. So the brief for this was 3 emojis, a person emoji, a jail, there's trapped behind, a house. So what can you do with that? So just thinking in very simplification problem, actually this idea was born when we were actually being briefed, because the brief was so tight with the problem that a lot of ideas flowed out of it. So that was one of the reasons how this idea was born.
That's awesome. I love the idea of brief emojis. I really thought, I was like, can we fit in a game where we brief you in emojis and see what you come up with on the spot? But I decided to spare you.
Exactly. And when you look at I would try this out. When you look at all the best works that inspire you guys, when you look at the case study, it's always the first minute is the problem, right? So if we can spend more energy beating up on the problem with the client internally, let's put all our energy there. Once you have a problem that gets you goosebumps, then you put the rest of the energy figuring out how to solve that problem.
Amazing. So Edelman has been involved with the development of several complex tech solutions for clients. Were there any particular challenges in building such a robust tool that could provide this level of accuracy?
I think, honestly, this actually went smooth.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those ideas
Nice.
you're like, what? Can this actually be done? Like, you just throw it out. And it was actually pretty smooth. And I got to say, during the pandemics, it opened up the borders. Like, we were able to work with so many people around Edelman family, which was amazing. It's like building the all-star team.
Yeah.
We have the tech genius from London. We have the accounts from, US and Canada for creativity. So it was like the superpowers put together.
Yeah.
And it became normal for us. And yeah, it went pretty smooth in terms of the hard part, which is the tech part.
Awesome. So let's talk about that a little bit, because technically this work was done by Salutum and you are at Edelman Canada, and I heard that in fact it took 4 Edelman offices to come together and pull this off. So how did that work? What did each of those agencies bring to the table, and how did it impact the final result?
Yeah, honestly, I love working with multi-dimensional, different minds, different people. That's what makes creativity amazing. And everybody brought their superpowers. I always find like everybody has superpowers. And again, back to pandemic, it actually opened up the border, and we were able to work very collaboratively together. To think of ideas. And I love working borderless.
Amazing. Do you have any tips or tricks of how to organize across so many different time zones and nearly cultures to make that happen so flawlessly?
Yeah, I always relate what we do to a basketball team. Like when you look at hockey team, any sports team, you have a coach. Again, it's so much parallel. It's crazy. You have a person that's going to get the rebound. You have somebody who's offensively good, but everybody knows everybody's roles and everybody trusts each other. And at the end of the day, we all want to win. That's where we're here, and have fun at the same time. So there's so much parallel things between sports and what we do, and there's a lot of nuances that we can learn from for example, the Bulls, the Michael Jordan team. There's so much parallel we can learn and so much things that we took, and that's the same philosophy I always go in whenever I work with integrated team.
And any part of the project that stuck out to you as the most exciting?
It was one of those this idea is never possible. You just throw it out, you're like, no way. And it was possible, and it took us 2 years to build this.
Wow.
Which was crazy. I think for me, anything is possible when you have an incredible team, and when you can really, really have, positive mind of always, pushing and trying to solve for that.
Incredible. I have a very serious question for you. Where is the best curry in New York, and will you be enjoying some while you're here?
All right, so I haven't researched. Maybe you guys can tell me where to go. I did go to Joe's Pizza. The lineup was crazy. But the best, if you guys ever come to Toronto, the best curry that I would recommend is Hopper Hut. It's in Toronto. It's amazing.
Incredible. And they can use Allegra Airways to get there safely.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Everybody, let's hear it one more time for Anthony Shalvanathan. Do we have another minute? I wasn't going to do this, but we do have another minute. Do we have a question out there in the audience for Anthony about this piece, about his career? Yeah. Love a question, ask her.
Hi, thank you for your time. How do you find the problem when the problem is not clear?
That's a good question. I think what I'm trying to tell the world right now is spend more time towards it. I guess throughout my whole entire career, it was always somebody briefing us. I don't know who did that or what happened there. And then let's just think of ideas. If that energy was put a little bit more towards the problem and really question it, is it actually a real problem? Are we just kind of going really fast to get the deadline done? So it's just like shifting your energy and really questioning it. Have clients be part of it. One other thing that I'm really encourage is the partnership. Like build that partnership. Like just last week, I had like a bunch of clients come in and brainstorm with us, and the best ideas actually do come from them because they know the business side and we are the creative side. If you can bring those two together, it's unbelievable. So my thing is just spend more time questioning the problem, make sure everybody in the room has that goosebump. And it's not for all briefs, but if you can do that, you can get to an amazing solution.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great question. All right, now one more time for Anthony. Let's give it up. Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, and for our first member feature of the week, I'm super excited to introduce to you all Peter Phobia. Peter is a German illustrator, animator, and skateboarder in New York. Inspired by life in the big city, Peter's approach to storytelling is bold, playful, energetic. Peter's characters are living their best life, making friends, rocking the latest sneakers, or skating through his illustrated universe. His clients include Amazon, Facebook, Coca-Cola, Samsung, T-Mobile, JP Morgan Chase, Lufthansa, the New York Times, just to name a few, just a few. Peter holds an MFA in illustration as visual essay from the School of Visual Arts. His work has been recognized by Adobe, the Art Directors Club, American Illustration, Society of Illustrators, Communication Arts, and the AOI. Let's hear it for Peter Phobia. Peter, it's so great to see you again, and welcome to Morning Buzz.
Thank you. I love that so many people skipped work this morning, so...
Nobody has anything to do at 10 a.m. on a Monday, right?
I mean, not us.
This. I'd love to start back at the beginning of your story. Your bio tells us that you're a skateboarder, but it's more than that, really, because skateboarding paved the way for your art career. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so as a kid, I wasn't interested in going to museums or art galleries, but I loved the art that surrounded me. And for me, that was like skateboard culture.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I was like the little kid in the skate shop asking for stickers to put on my board.
Yeah.
And I mean, to this day, I still collect stickers. So not that much has changed.
Yeah.
But also, like, skating on the streets introduced me to graffiti and street art. And what started out as me, like, cutting stencils and spray painting, like, skate company logos onto my grip tape evolved into, like, me designing my own boards and also painting murals and doing graffiti.
Cool. When we spoke, you described an abandoned warehouse or factory that your friends took it over and made it your own world. Tell us more about that.
So I mean, we were like totally DIY people. So, and I grew up in Germany. So in fall, like it rains a lot, bad weather. So we found this abandoned factory and we built our own skate park out of like scrap wood at age like 15, 16. And in that factory, like at some point, other people showed up, and it was like graffiti writers. So they spray painted, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Maybe I should try that too."
Yeah, I love that. Being a hooligan led to an art career. You've mentioned that you've painted murals all over the world. What's been one of your favorite places to have left your mark?
So in 2017, during Berlin Art Week, I painted this big mural, which is still to this day the biggest mural I've ever painted. And it was 130 feet wide and 30 feet high.
Wow.
So it was pretty big.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about the size, but it was something happened, and it kind of shifted my perspective on making art. Because until that point, I was the graffiti kid. It was just like purely out of ego.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to paint the biggest walls and see my work in as many places as possible.
Yeah.
But then I was standing there in front of this gigantic wall, and I felt so small. And I was like, this can't be just about me anymore. And so I didn't want to just take up space, but I also wanted to create something that gives back.
Awesome.
And then, I mean, I'm simplifying here, but I painted this big bouquet of flowers, and on the top it said, "This is for you." And I mean, that was 2017, and even now, like 7 years later, people still send me photos and tag me on Instagram.
That's cool.
So I think I'm totally happy about that.
Yeah, almost immortalized. In the last year, you worked with Lufthansa and created an illustration for an actual plane that flies in the actual sky. How was that experience? Did you ever think that illustration and art would have you working on such a large scale for a huge brand?
I mean, first of all, like, as you guys know by now, I love stickers. So it was like the biggest sticker I ever designed, which I was like super stoked about. But to give you more context, it was for the Soccer World Cup, and it was the official plane the German team used to travel back and forth. And growing up in Germany, like, I basically started playing soccer in kindergarten. So, and that was like the team I always rooted for. So it was a dream project for me.
Super cool.
And I mean, it was a very public project, and we received a lot of press, a lot of feedback. Many people loved it.
Yeah.
A few people hated it. But I think to me, that's like the perfect project, because I think you've done something right if there are people like hating a little bit. So
if
I
they
think
can be bothered to comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. And now that you've illustrated a plane, what's next?
I was going to ask you, I mean, we talked about this before, but did you invite some people from NASA?
Oh, I think they declined.
They declined? Okay, that's a bummer. Next question.
I know that you've moved into a new studio recently. What are you most excited about in having a new creative space?
So my wife, Ava Zar, she's sitting in the audience there, and we moved into a new studio together. And but obviously I'm excited to spend time with her because she's like the most creative person I know. She's also a great photographer and director. You should check her work out. But most importantly, I think it's the place where we work, but it's also a safe space to experiment and to grow as creatives.
Yeah.
And it's a place to focus, because I think we live in a time, like, world full of distractions.
Sure.
So focus and time is like the most valuable thing to me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have a lot of young creatives in the audience. What advice would you give to someone looking to make a living as an artist?
There is this Andy Warhol quote that I really love, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, "Don't think about making art, just get it done. Let everyone else decide if it's good or bad, if they love it or hate it, and while they're deciding, make even more art." And I think in the beginning, especially, you need to experiment, and I think it's in the beginning it's quantity over quality, because quality will come,
Sure.
And I think it's all about practice.
Awesome. We've got a few more minutes left, so I'm going to do it again. Do we have any questions in the audience for Peter? Come on. Yes. You just have to stare at them long enough. The teachers in the audience know that's true. Just give it space.
When you're working on personal work, oh my god, my voice. Is there like a concept or theme that you keep coming back to, or is there like a tip in the process of like when you can draw anything, what do you do with the decisions, you know?
I did my master's at SVA here in New York, and before, I never did any skateboard related art. And like for my thesis project, I was like, what's the most personal thing that I can think of? And so I did this series about skateboarding, and for me that changed everything. It was the first, like people from Vans, from the skate company got interested, they featured the work, and it really put me on the spot and like made it a really smooth transition from like being a student to being like in the commercial illustration world. So I think I would just talk and draw and create work about stuff you know, because I think for you it might not be interesting because you've spent so much time with that topic, but like there's probably a lot of people out there who would love to hear your story. So yeah.
Good one. Yes. 3 for 3. Yikes. Yes, love it.
I'm sorry.
No.
If you don't already have a sticker, if you could have your own sticker that represents you as an artist, what would it be? And what would it have in it?
She's coming for my job.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have my own stickers. And so the sticker series I did most recently is a bunch of skaters without the skateboard. And it's basically just a bunch of characters floating around and like falling. And there is this one, I mean, some are in a really like cool pose, but like there is this one who's like tumbling and falling. And I like that one the most because to me that represents like trial and error. And that's one thing I like that skateboarding taught me about like running your own business. It's like a lot of trial and error, but if you don't give up, you can't lose. And at the end, you land the kickflip, and then you feel great, and it's all good.
Love that. I know we weren't gonna like really talk about it, but we can plug, right? You're now a published author, or you have a book. Yes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we can just, can we tell them what it's called?
It's called This is Skateboarding. It's a book about the history of skateboarding. It's published by HarperCollins. And it hopefully inspires many young kids to start skating. Yeah.
So go get your copy today. Awesome, cool. Well, let's hear it for Peter. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you.
Awesome having you. I'll give you a hug on your way out. Thank you so much. You can take that with you. Yeah, I don't want it. And folks, that's our show. If these folks inspire you to want to join our community, I hope that you'll make your way over to oneclub.org and learn more about becoming a member. But before you go, let's hear it one more time for our guests. Let's hear it for Wix. And we'll send it up to them. Let's hear it for our student winners tonight at Young Ones. Let's hear it. Woo! If you're coming to Sony Hall, we'll see you there. Have so much fun. And I can't wait to see you all back here tomorrow at 10 a.m. and introduce you to 4 more inspiring guests. Thanks so much. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.